Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Keith, and welcome to my breakdown recap of UFC 199. You can't really tell, but I'm wearing my UFC t-shirt. There it is. I just got this in the mail the other day. A new member of UFC Fight Club. Okay, I'll stop. UFC 199 is in the books, and what a great event. I wanted to break down my take on some of the fights. Let's start off with Dan Henderson and Hector Lombard. Pretty decent fight, and wouldn't you know, Father Time, Dan Henderson pulled it through. But I'm really hoping Dan Henderson retires, not because of any other reason of the fact that I think he's a pretty dirty fighter. We saw this at UFC 100 at the Bisping fight. Bisping was clearly unconscious, and he jumped on top of him and punched him again. And last night, he gave the elbow to the temple to Lombard, knocked him out, and got on top of him and started hitting him again. And clearly did some damage because it took a while for the medics to be able to get Lombard conscious and back to his feet. I don't think there's any place in the UFC for that type of thing. And I understand that the referee has to stop it, but we've seen multiple times where a fighter knocks somebody out and they've got the trigger pulled, but they're just waiting for the ref to get in and stop it. And Henderson's smart enough to know better. So if that was his last fight, then in my opinion, good riddance. Now let's talk about the two big fights of the night. Dominic Cruz, Uriah Faber. First of all, a lot of respect for both of these guys. For you to have a good fight, you need to have the right people, and those are definitely the right people for the bantamweight title. A lot of back and forth between the two of them, but it's one of those fights that you get excited for because you have no idea what could potentially happen. Both had wins over the other. They were both coming into this fight looking like either one could potentially win, even though Cruz was the favorite. Hats off to Cruz. A lot of respect for this guy. He's gone through a lot. He's had to endure more than I think the average fighter or slash person has had to. He's lost so much, but now he's not only come back and won his title, but he's defended it as well. Hats off to Faber for being a complete class act in his post-fight. One of the things that I love to see is even though people can talk as much trash as they want to leading up to the fight, it's always great to see some respect going back after the fight's concluded. And yes, in the post-fight, there might have been a little jawing between the two of them, but at the same token, I think they basically needed each other in each other's careers to make them better, because when you go back and you look at their great fights, they have to look at each other and say, well, yeah, you were part of what I established as my fighting career. So that fight to me isn't as exciting if you're seeing Dominic Cruz take on somebody else in the bantamweight division. It's exciting because of the animosity that was there with Faber, and I'm hoping Faber doesn't retire, for the simple fact that I would love to see a Faber Dillashaw fight. So hopefully that's in the cards. As far as our main event is concerned, destiny came true. Michael Bisping, first round knockout of Luke Rockhold. Luke Rockhold was suffering from what I'm going to call Anderson Silva syndrome, which is where you take Michael Bisping too lightly. Michael Bisping, of course, a journeyman in the UFC, somebody who's been around for a long time, finally getting his title shot and making the most of it. Bisping, when he fought Rockhold, said a guy who has a family can't really balance the two. Clearly that wasn't the case, as Bisping had absolutely no problem sending Rockhold nighty-night with just a stunning knockout. I remember, well, because it was last night, jumping up because I had the guys over, and I was so excited. I was so happy for Bisping. I think Bisping tried to do, leading up to the fight, tried to do a pretty good job of combining the trash talk with the respect. It would have been great if instead of after the fight, Bisping jumping on the cage, turning to Rockhold and saying F you, if he had done what Rockhold had done when Rockhold had beat Bisping, help him up or wait for him to get up and go over and give him that respect. It would have been great. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, and then things got significantly worse for Bisping in the post-fight presser. I'm actually going to do a separate blog on the post-fight and specifically Michael Bisping's comments. But in terms of the recap for 199, I thought it was a very decent card. I thought there was a lot of great fights. The Cruz Faber fight was probably my most anticipated fight out of all of the last few months of the UFC, because I really wanted to see it. Cruz's style is so crazy and it's so unorthodox. And he comes in at such unique angles, which makes it difficult to fight his style. But again, Faber's got power, and we've seen Faber take people out too. So I wasn't really sure what was going to happen. I'm happy with the way that that Cruz handled himself, and I'm happy that he didn't get injured. So it will be interesting to see what happens. And of course, the big news. I think a lot of the news that happened at UFC 199 happened outside of the octagon, because we had what happened with Bisping in the post fight, which again, separate blog is going to be coming up on that. But Ariel Helwani being banned for life from the UFC. Now, no official statements that I've seen, but let's talk about this. So I had the guys over. We're barbecuing in the afternoon, and we get the alert that Brock Lesnar is working on a deal for UFC 200. It's like, okay, cool. Let's find out what happens. And then the UFC announces it on the pay-per-view. Now, with the exception of Joe Rogan pretending he had no idea what was going on, because if we had access to that information, I'm sure Joe Rogan did, I don't understand what the big deal is. If Ariel Helwani is a journalist, his job is to report the news. Now, I'm not standing here saying I'm a huge Ariel Helwani fan. I enjoy his interviews, but it's not like I've got, his poster up or something. I respect his work. The thing that I think of is, so I'm a big fan of Apple products. Let's say somebody leaks the new iPhone. You don't come down on that reporter, you come down on the person within your organization who allowed that leak to happen. At least that's how I see it. And if Ariel Helwani actually is going to be banned for life, that to me is a real shame, because not only was he great at covering the sport, but he was also a genuine fan of the sport, and he asked decent questions. And yes, he challenged the UFC, but that's kind of what they need. Otherwise, you just surround yourself with puppets. So hopefully that gets itself worked out, and Helwani will be back. But again, I don't know the full story. From all I've heard is that he leaked information. But again, in the year 2016, with social networking being what it is, can you really keep a secret? WWE, which again, I will always say the UFC models a lot of their marketing and pay-per-view after, they will tell you that in the year 2016, being able to keep secrets and surprises is very difficult. When they had the whole NWO storyline, internet wasn't a big deal, so they're able to do that. Now it's a matter of, oh, I just saw so-and-so at the airport. Oh, I just saw The Undertaker at the airport. I'm wondering if he's going to be at Raw tonight. Or, hey, I just saw this person at the arena. So blaming somebody for that type of a leak, I don't think it's a big deal. And as a fan, as somebody who went out and bought the pay-per-view last night, knowing that Brock Lesnar was going to be on UFC 200 before the UFC wanted me to know doesn't make me not want to see it. So again, I don't know what the problem is. But again, I don't know the full story either, so I'll say that. So that's my take on UFC 199. What did you think? CFL_fan on Twitter is how you can get a hold of me, as well as facebook.com/WittyWhittier and WittyWhittier.com. Thank you so much for checking this out. Please be sure to check out my Michael Bisping post-fight blog, because I've got something to say to the champ. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye.